Welcome, Motenta people. Kirk Douglas was never an Oscar-winning actor. He never had the title of the King of Hollywood. He didn't spawn any biopics. Yet, Kirk Douglas, a big-screen tough guy, has earned the kind of constant public attention that very few movie actors have ever had. Why? Let's find out. Make sure to watch the video until the end. And if you're new here, don't forget to join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Motenta's channel. Kirk Douglas, tough yet humane. One of the last stars from Hollywood's golden age. Kirk Douglas's journey to becoming the most well-known actor in cinematic history, a prolific author, and a social gladiator was indeed an interesting one. Douglas secured a special place for himself in old Hollywood history with his risk-taking acting style and distinctive, charming personality, with a handsome face, dimpled chin, intensive green eyes, and an athletic build. But above all, he had a talent that he showed in 74 films and more than a dozen TV movies and miniseries during 62 years. So, did he just achieve success? Absolutely not. Douglas's life was filled with a variety of professional and personal hurdles, in addition to his numerous wins. He had a toughness crafted through hardships, discrimination, and misery that somehow benefited his talent, gratitude, and humanity. So did his inner frustration fuel his destructiveness? In this video, we'll learn more. Let's get deep into Douglas's story behind the glamorous world of Hollywood. We can't deny that Kirk Douglas is one of the most admired stars in Hollywood. But do you know what the engine was that drove him to achieve again and again? Perhaps it was his family background. On December 9, 1916, he was born Isser Danielowitz in Amsterdam, New York, a small town located about 35 miles northwest of Albany. He was one of 7 children, 6 of whom were sisters, and he described himself as the offspring of uneducated Russian Jewish immigrants in the wasp town of Amsterdam in his memoirs. Isser was nicknamed Izzy. Because Jews were prohibited from working in the town's mills, his father, Herschel, became a ragman who gathered and sold waste. Can you imagine the life of a ragman's son? He slept in a poorly ventilated clapboard home on a shabby living room sofa. He occasionally stole food from nearby homes or food shops when he was starving. But the struggle was not just limited to getting food. Being Jewish was another struggle. He was regularly targeted by a street gang who hurled anti-Semitic remarks and stones at him. However, when we talk about Douglas's hardest challenge, then his father is the only person who comes to mind. His illiterate, alcoholic father withdrew his affection from Douglas and plainly refused to acknowledge any of his accomplishments. Young Izzy learned that hard work was crucial for survival because his father was an indifferent provider. Before he achieved success in Hollywood, he reportedly claimed that he had worked at least 40 different jobs, including dishwashing and newspaper delivery. He moved to St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, after finishing high school, where he was enrolled and awarded a loan for college. He started wrestling for the varsity team at St. Lawrence, and despite being turned down by fraternities because he was Jewish, was chosen as the school's first ever Jewish student representative during his junior year. The aspiring actor decided to change his name to Kirk Douglas in 1939 during his last summer of college. Why did he choose that name? The answer was given by himself in an interview where he claimed that it means masculine and powerful. Douglas, a college graduate, received a scholarship at the esteemed American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Manhattan after an outstanding audition. There he met teenager Lauren Bacall and Diana Dill, 2 girls who would go on to play significant roles in his life. It was 1941 when he landed his first Broadway part in the production of Spring Again, shortly after completing acting school. The director of the show gave him another role in a 1942 version of Anton Chekhov's The Three Sisters, even though his role as the singing Western Union messenger was only minor. After years of fighting against destitution and anti-Semitism, Douglas's theater career appeared to be flourishing. Then unexpectedly, a world event happened. Yes, it was the Second World War. Kirk Douglas had a wave of patriotism, and of course a wave of Jewishness. He attempted to enlist in the Army as a pilot, putting his acting aspirations on hold. Unfortunately, he failed the proficiency test. Was that enough to put an end to his plan to bomb the Germans? Certainly not. The tough guy didn't give up and joined the Navy, attended Notre Dame's midshipman training, and even reported for duty during the run of the Three Sisters. Douglas reportedly received anti-submarine warfare training as a communications officer before being assigned to the Pacific. At the same time, he was working as a gunnery officer on a submarine chaser. In February 1943, the ship prepared to fire on a Japanese submarine after becoming aware of its proximity. But a near-tragic event almost took Douglas's life. A live depth charge was accidentally released by one of his crew members, and it exploded as soon as it struck the water. Douglas was forcibly thrown against the ship by the explosion that followed, which also lifted the boat into the air. Douglas was released from the Navy as a junior-grade lieutenant after being admitted to the hospital with abdominal injuries and later found to also have amoebic dysentery. His military career was drastically cut short, and in 1943 he returned to Manhattan and the theater scene. The return, however, was not an immediate success. This time he contracted a psychosomatic disease after being cast for a musical, which made his singing voice ineffective and led him to be replaced. It seemed like he was just attracting misfortunes continuously, but then his former classmate and rising movie star Lauren Bacall appeared like a ray of hope. She convinced Hollywood producer Hal Wallace to see Douglas's performance in another play. And guess what? Wallace was so impressed that he decided to star Douglas with Barbara Stanwyck in his subsequent film, The Strange Loves of Martha Ivers. In 1946, Douglas made his film debut and never missed a beat since. Following a great debut, Douglas's career on the big screen took off, with parts in the Out of the Past film noir classic and I Walk Alone, the first of 7 movies he made with close friend Burt Lancaster. His portrayal of a haughty boxer and champion earned him his first Oscar nomination. Though he didn't win, his reputation as a leading tough guy was cemented, and many reputable films followed. He got 2 more Oscar nominations for his performances as the tortured Vincent van Gogh in Lust for Life, and for The Bad and the Beautiful. By 1955, he was successful enough to establish his own production firm and entitled it Bryna Productions in memory of his mother. Bryna, along with Burt Lancaster's firm, was one of the first and most prominent actor-based production companies in Hollywood. He was thriving in his professional life, but what about his personal life? Well, Douglas's personal life was also adjusting after he met Diana Dill. She was the daughter of a respectable British-Jamaican lawyer and was only 16 years old when Kirk Douglas first met her at the acting school. She previously dated notorious womanizer Errol Flynn, and this time her experience was not going to be any different. Dill moved to Hollywood and worked as a contract actor for Warner Brothers after graduating, while Douglas pursued a career in theater. Reportedly, Douglas proclaimed to his shipmates that he would one day marry Dill after seeing a picture of her on the cover of Life magazine while he was serving in the Navy. A little over a year later, he followed through on his word. Michael, who followed in his father's footsteps as a movie star, and Joel, who pursued a career in film production, were the couple's 2 sons. Dill claims that Douglas deceived her repeatedly during their marriage, which ended in divorce in 1951. However, they remained friends and even later co-starred as husband and wife in the movie It Runs in the Family, which also starred Michael as their son. In 1953, while Act of Love was being filmed in Paris, Douglas met his love, a film publicist, Ann Bidens. She had a wartime husband at the time, and Douglas was secretly committed to Italian actress Piera Angeli. Bidens declined Douglas's offer to work as an assistant, since she was certain he merely wanted a brief relationship. But she finally gave in and started working as both his PR and lover when they ran into each other again on another production. Douglas wrote of Bidens as a sophisticated woman, unlike Piera Angeli, who brought her mother on all their dates. Douglas eventually called off his engagement, but Bidens threatened to leave him after a heated argument. Totally in love, Douglas asked her to marry him in May 1954 in Las Vegas, and she said yes. The couple stayed together for the following 66 years and had 2 children, Peter and Eric. Sounds like an achievement? Well, all the credit goes to Bidens' European views on marriage. The couple threw a lavish party in 2004 to mark their 50th wedding anniversary. Along with all his personal and professional achievements, Kirk Douglas, however, did a lot more to leave a lasting impact on the lives of people. He writes in his 2012 book, I Am Spartacus, Making a Film, Breaking a Blacklist, that he was unaware of the politics or the activities of the House Un-American Activities Committee when he first arrived in Hollywood in 1945. History has observed that HUAC was a U.S. committee with the authority to issue subpoenas, House of Representatives charged with looking into Cold War communist activity. The committee's primary focus was Hollywood, and when 10 filmmakers, including screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, refused to comply by identifying names in October 1947, they were all imprisoned for contempt of Congress and blacklisted by the movie business. As I mentioned in I Am Spartacus, famous author Howard Fast was also a victim of the HUAC. Fast started writing a book about the revolt led by the Roman slave Spartacus when he was being held for contempt. Later, a smarter Douglas decided to adapt Fast's book for the big screen, and according to the New York Times, he engaged Trumbo to pen the script. Trumbo had been forced to use pseudonyms to write for a living for years, but Douglas thought it was high time to stop this exploitative and hypocritical practice. He insisted Trumbo be given credit under his real name by using his star status as leverage. The metaphorical Spartacus, whose slogan, I Am Spartacus, has come to represent righteous protest, debuted in 1960 to encourage success. Its effectiveness assisted in ending the blacklist and solidified Douglas's standing as a morally upright creative force. Tough guy Kirk Douglas enjoyed superb health for the majority of his life, but his mortality was repeatedly put to the test. In 1958, when Douglas was scheduled to go from Palm Springs to New York on a private plane with the director Mike Todd, Ann Bidens had a weird feeling about the trip just before takeoff. She asked him not to board the aircraft, and despite their disagreement, Douglas decided not to go. Surprisingly, her intuitions were not wrong. The following day, they heard that Todd's plane had crashed, killing everyone on board. She saved Douglas's life, but again, Douglas experienced a true life-altering close call with death in 1991. The actor was a passenger when the pilot of a helicopter headed for Los Angeles crashed with a small stunt plane close to the runway. Both passengers died in the fireball explosion of the helicopter. Luckily, Douglas was rescued from the blazing wreckage while unconscious and with a damaged spine. Although the event left him with long-lasting bodily and psychological pain, he soon got back on his feet. Douglas's worst health problem came about in 1996, when he had a stroke that left him with severe speech impairment, depression, and suicidal thoughts. But how can we expect Douglas to give up? He was strong just like his name. He put a lot of effort into his recovery, and a few months later, he was back in the spotlight. Behind this strong man, there was an unfortunate, sensitive, and loving father who himself never experienced his father's love. Many articles have been written on Kirk Douglas's tight bond with his successful son Michael. But do you know about his youngest son, Eric? Eric was the one who passed away from a drug overdose in 2004 at the age of 46, outside of the headlines. Eric pursued acting as a young man and enrolled at a London drama school. Though he had talent, his career never really took off. An 8-day drug-induced coma in 1999 permanently altered his speech and gait. Being the youngest son of a prominent family had turned out to be an emotional burden for Eric, not a door opener. According to reports, Kirk Douglas said that Eric had all of his worst traits and said that to love and hate him was to love and hate himself. Eric wanted Kirk's acceptance, just like Kirk had with his father. And even though Kirk was a more compassionate father than his own, it seemed like Eric battled to feel loved and accepted. Kirk, who was 86 at the time, took Eric's death terribly hard, because it occurred soon after he and Ann Bidens had given him a strict deadline to quit drinking. In the last decades of Kirk Douglas, he appeared as a compassionate humanitarian more than anything else. His philanthropic activities gained prominence as his acting career started to taper. He and Ann Bidens founded the Douglas Foundation in 1964, making it one of the oldest private philanthropic organizations in the entertainment business. The construction of 400 school playgrounds, the Kirk Douglas High School, which assists troubled students in staying in school, and the Ann Douglas Center for Homeless Women, which offers treatment for drug and alcohol addiction, are just a few of his numerous humanitarian efforts. In addition to his charitable work, Douglas was a lifelong American Goodwill Ambassador, according to his official website, U.S. Department of State Agency for Information. In 1963, at Bobby Kennedy's request, and with the assistance of his friend President John F. Kennedy, he undertook his first Goodwill trip to Colombia. In the following 25 years, Douglas traveled the globe to promote American values. Jimmy Carter presented Douglas with a Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1981 as a token of gratitude for his service. Other numerous honors were bestowed upon Kirk Douglas, such as the 1994 Kennedy Center Honors and the 1996 Honorary Academy Award for his 50 years as a creative and moral force in the motion picture community. Finally, he passed away at the age of 103 on February 5, 2020. But what he did before leaving this world proved who he really was. Before his long and exceptional life adventure came to an end, he rightly donated the majority of his $61 million wealth to charity. All his life he lived like a tough guy, surviving battles of life without shedding a tear. Yet he died like a champion for many, showing his real beautiful heart. What do you think of Douglas? Let us know in the comments. It often happens that these Hollywood actors come from big families. Why is that? Why Clint Eastwood never stopped making children? Find out from this video.